And Lori Wine is absent tonight, and we have a quorum.
All right, request motion to accept agenda.
I move we accept the agenda.
I second.
All right, roll call, please.
Judy Bory,
Yes.
Cheryl Hall,
Yes.
Pam Kraus,
Yes.
Yvonne Cruiser,
Yes.
Vivian Reisky,
Yes.
Vera Walters,
Yes.
and Lori Wine is absent. Motion passes.
Okay, request motion to accept minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call, please.
Judy Bory,
Yes.
Cheryl Hall,
Yes.
Pam Kraus,
Yes.
Yvonne Cruiser,
Yes.
Vivian Reisky,
Yes.
Vera Walters,
Yes.
and Lori Wine is absent. Motion passes.
All right. We have no public, so we'll move on to the next item. Any correspondence or communications? None tonight? All right. We'll move on to the library report, 22-209, presentation, discussion, and update on library statistic programs and events.
Thank you, Board Member Kraus. Thank you, board members, for being here tonight. Pam Harrison, Library Director. Just going to fill you in on our latest month's statistics at the library. You received this prior to the meeting, but we are showing that we have had a slight increase in our circulation, slight increase in patron visits this past month, as well as an increase in our programs attendance. So it was a great month of March. And does anybody have any questions about any of those statistics?
Is the increase due to the 31 days, or is it based on actual, at the events, we're seeing more people attend the events that we do hold?
That's a great question. It could be due to the fact that there's an extra day. I'm not sure where the days fell for the month of March, so I'm not sure if the extra day fell on a Sunday when we were closed. But I think a lot of it had to do with our tax appointments in the month of March. And as well as for the programs, we did have an increase in the number of programs, and we did have a couple quite large programs with LibraryCon and with Preschool University, which always brings in a big crowd, but there were 5 of those, but that brought in almost 300 people. So I think it was a little bit of a mix of a lot of different things. Any other questions about the stats? All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the programs and highlights from the month. Okay, so today we had our annual Easter egg hunt in the park adjacent to the library. It began this morning at 9:30. We had lots of people showing up at our doors right promptly at 9 o'clock when we opened this morning. Unfortunately, we were unable to secure an Easter bunny for the event, so the flyer was a little bit inaccurate. But we were able to get an Easter donkey.
Oh.
So that was Pip, and I believe there's another donkey. I think there's 2 donkeys. It could have just been Pip today, but a local resident who has donkeys and has come to some past programs brought her donkeys today to the program. And you can't see the donkey's tail, but the donkey has a nice little rabbit cottontail on his behind. So it was very cute. And as you can see, the kids had a great time. We had about 300 in attendance, and the most accurate count we could get of the number of children in attendance was 105. We put out over 1,200 eggs, so the kids got to get a good amount of eggs that had treats and surprises inside of them. A program that started at the end of March and is continuing through April is our stargazing event. The Superstition Mountain Astronomical League has been coming to share their expertise and about the stars and the opportunity to ask them questions. They bring their telescopes with them, and we meet in the back area of the library on Monday evenings from 7:30 to 9. So if you're interested in learning more about the stars, it's a family event, and all are welcome to join us.
Can I make a comment here?
Sure can.
And I don't know if you want to post this, but on the 17th, which is the day before the 18th, there's supposed to be a conjunction, or 4 planets are going to be visible in the night sky, all at the same time in a row, which only happens very, very rarely.
There's been a lot of astronomical events like in the last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, and it may still be visible to a certain extent on the 18th. It won't quite probably line up completely, but it should still be like a line of planets.
Do you know which planets? Is it?
I know Venus for sure. I think Saturn and Jupiter, and maybe Mars might have been the
Okay.
fourth one that I remember reading about. I just read about this like the other day.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'll mention it to our youth supervisor so she can inquire with the Astronomical League. That sounds really cool. Another program that has been going on at the library now for its 3rd year is our Writer in Residence. So Writers in Residence in Libraries is a program that is sponsored by the Arizona State Library Archives and Public Records. And its vision is to support creativity in Arizona by connecting local professional authors with their communities in their public libraries. Gregory McNamee has been our present writer in residence, and our next one is Osha Gray Davidson, whose book, The Best of Enemies, was adapted to film and starred Sam Rockwell. A lot of the authors that we get for the Writers in Residence have works that appear in publications such as the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, Outside, Arizona Highways, and more. So we are awarded two residencies per year that run for 6 months. The authors hold private consultations and present a series of workshops during their residencies. They provide topics and tools for their consultations and workshops that can be applied to fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, and can be utilized by writers of high school age and above. So if you're interested in learning more from our Writers in Residence, please see our website for more information. Here is our lovely adult supervisor, Vicki Durain, and I'm featuring her because this month it was her vision to extend the National Poetry Month to the public by offering to do videos of people throughout the community reading poetry and posting them on Facebook. And it's been wildly popular. Vicki did the first poem for us. She read The Abandoned Farmhouse by Ted Kuzer. I was up there one day, and it's fun for those of us that can see the stats on the back side of the Facebook page, like myself, and see how many people looked at our poetry reading. Mine was not very high. But I can tell you that our new chief of police, Mike Pooley, I just looked at his numbers before the meeting tonight, and he has crested the 2,700 mark for views.
Oh, my God.
Yes. So go police. Yesterday's video was of our city manager, Bryant Powell, who was reading a great inspirational poem. So he's got some numbers to make up to reach up to Mike Pooley, but some others that we had from the city that wanted to say thank you for your support of the library and for offering to be on Facebook for the community to see would be Al Bravo, who is our public information officer. Matt Busby will be also featured in an upcoming video, and I know there's others from the city as well, so keep an eye out for our daily poetry reading.
I'm going to read a poem
You are.
tomorrow after the Birds of the Sonoran Desert presentation.
Nice.
Well, thank you. Is it about birds?
Of course.
That's what I figured. Well, we can't wait to hear it. You always do great videos for the library, though. Vera has just a way in front of the camera, so
Yeah,
she should have been a movie star. Well, great, thanks for doing that.
You bet.
Last but not least, this month is National Library Month, or excuse me, this past week was National Library Week. It was last week. And the theme for that was Connect with Your Library. It's sponsored by the American Library Association. And the theme this year spotlights libraries as places to get connected to broadband, computers, and other technology resources, such as Wi-Fi hotspots, which we do circulate at the Apache Junction Library. It reinforces the idea that libraries are places to connect with not only books and media, but programs and ideas as well as each other. And Mayor Wilson last week proclaimed last week as National Library Week for the city of Apache Junction and at the council meeting, and we want to thank the city for their support. And that is the conclusion of the librarian's report.
Can I make a comment? Could we get T-shirts, maybe not this year, but of course, but maybe plan it for next year on, say, a T-shirt for Library Week, or something like I love my library, or, you know, something that we could purchase, you know, that people could purchase.
Oh, okay. To be possibly
You could tie it.
sold through the Friends of the Library? I will definitely pose that question to them. I love the idea.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Vera.
Related to the monthly report?
Yes, ma'am.
I am not familiar with outreach, and I see that you had at the neighborhood meeting at Meridian RV Mobile Home Park, 85 participants and 75 in the one above. What do you do? Could I have that information?
Sure. So the city is involved in a neighborhood meetings program. They visit different normally mobile home parks throughout the winter months when our winter visitors are here. And they invite the library, the chief of police, parks and recreation, lots of different city departments to participate by sharing information with park residents. And so we did attend that, and our outreach librarian did those events. So that would be Miss Megan Carbiner. And so she goes there and talks about all the library services, what we have to offer. This month, she actually had some surveys too for people to fill out for our library strategic planning survey. So yeah, it's something that we do every year, and as you can see, we get some good attendance at those.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any other questions? All right, on to old business.
There is no old business for this evening.
All right, on to new business then. We'll start with library statistics planning focus group sections with moderation Tony Garvey of Garvey Library Consulting.
Okay. So tonight, we're pleased to announce that we have Tony Garvey of Garvey Library Consulting here with us tonight. She's going to be moderating a focus group for the library board members. She'll have a set of questions that she'll be asking for your input. Would you like them to see the PowerPoint first, Tony, or would you like to say some things first?
Just a couple comments, and then we'll get right into the PowerPoint. Good evening, and thank you for having me here. We're just embarking on focus groups in the community, and I have met with the Library Planning Committee. I'm going to be doing a focus group with the Friends of the Library, and then with several community groups, and I'll also be doing some with staff. And these are both following surveys that we've done, the online surveys with the public and with staff, and it gives me an opportunity to follow up on some things that maybe came up in a survey that I want to dig into a little bit further. But I find it helpful sometimes to start with just what I'm seeing in public libraries. I work with a lot of public libraries around the country, and I am a librarian. I used to be the director of Phoenix Public Library a number of years ago. So why don't we do through this, and I'll go through it pretty quickly so that we just have some common ideas about what's happening in public libraries. One of the biggest things I'm finding is public libraries being much more people-centric than they used to be, and you might think that we were always very people-centric, but we really were not. You know, for a long time, we were kind of the only game in town. Everything was within our four walls. And that's not true anymore. People can get information lots of places, and we have to think about, well, why do we want them to come to the library and get things from us now that they have other choices? And it makes us think more about the services the public wants and how they want those services presented and when they want them presented, and the best way to arrange the collection for them, and not for the staff, but what works best for them, and even the kind of furniture people would like in their library. You know, it wasn't all that long ago before, since you didn't really find a lot of comfortable furniture in libraries. It used to be just, you know, those wooden chairs, and that was about it. So libraries are different places now. Next slide. We're also finding that people treat their library like their third place. Your first place is home, and your second place is work or school. That third place is a place you choose to go to connect with other people, or even to be alone in a crowd, but a place you choose to spend time. And there are many in a community. A lot of people have, you know, the local coffee shop as their third place. I used to live in Leesburg, Virginia, and there was a little restaurant downtown. That was the third place for a very particular group of men of a certain age who lived in Leesburg. But more people are making the library their third place. And you might think, well, why is that important? Well, if people are choosing to be there and socialize with other people, spend some time there, then that translates into, well, what kind of spaces do we have? What kind of light do we need? You know, what kind of chairs do we have in the library? All of that gets impacted by it being the third place. And thank heaven it's even becoming a third place for a lot of teenagers, which is great. Next slide.
Sure.
People are looking to the library for a place for social interaction. You know, we used to discourage it. You know, we didn't want you to come and actually interact with anybody else. Just, you know, get your books, get your questions answered, do your research. And we were set up that way. So now you see where libraries really are encouraging people to have that interaction. Next slide. But people also want quiet. And when I go around and talk to people about library services, I hear this as much as I hear about a place to meet with other people. Yeah, oh yeah, I want a place where I can have a conversation, but I also want a place where it's quiet. And I'm seeing libraries put, for example, this round glass thing, which I love. I think those are wonderful. You know, they're only about 8 feet tall. And it's not totally quiet, but it gives people more quiet than they might otherwise have. And I even hear that from teenagers a lot, who say, I don't have a quiet place to do my homework. I come here for that, which is always interesting. More than ever, libraries need to be flexible. The business we're in, you know, the reading and information business, because it is a business, is changing more rapidly than it ever has before in terms of formats and what we're providing and things like that. So I often see libraries that have a reference desk on wheels. I'm working with the library in a new library being built in Mesa right now, and I think we'll end up putting all their shelving on casters so that it can be moved if it needs to be moved. As I mentioned before, people are looking for places to meet and collaborate and study. I'm even finding some libraries that have these kind of black box theaters, you know, where events go on. Next one. But we're also especially looking to the teen community, but adults as well. People are looking for a place to create, to learn something new. You certainly are seeing it with your makerspace in the library, your creation space. I was looking at it today. And with that comes sharing what you've learned. And so we're seeing not just people coming in to gather information about how to do something, but actually doing that thing in the library and then showing other people. Certainly we know that collections are changing. I'm trying to wrap my head around the stuff-brary that Mesa has, because they need shelving for it. And it could be a telescope or a fishing rod. It could be all kinds of things that they loan out to people. And some of our things really aren't physical things that are ever in the library. You just see images of them, but they're still, you know, library resources that we're offering. And in some places, they're arranging them differently. You know, that the children's books about castles are by the picture of the castle. And the children's books about farm animals are the picture of the barn. Libraries really have experimented with a lot of different ways to share that collection with the public. And of course, we have new technologies, and I love this picture of people, with the virtual reality. It just is, I think, the best picture in the world. They're not aware of each other anymore. They're just involved in what it is that they're doing. But as with your library, checking out hotspots and things, it's not unusual for libraries to be checking out laptops and, various pieces of technology to members of the public. Children's areas have become more interactive, and yours certainly is today. When Pam and I were talking about it as I went through it, you have that 0 to 5 age where, children are learning by playing, and libraries are responding to that by having interactive devices for children. And then we're also seeing more places and services specifically for teens and tweens. That's their space in the library. And I have found over time, I was remembering that the first teen space we opened in Phoenix was actually in 2002. I'd forgotten that it was quite that long ago. But what we learned was that the process was as important as the product we ended up with. So involving teens in the design of that space, we actually had teens working with an architect on the space, was as important as what we ended up with, because it gave them some ownership of that space, and they really did feel it was theirs. Libraries aren't just staying in one place anymore. You have your fun van, and libraries have a variety of ways of getting out in the communities. In fact, I'm actually seeing many libraries returning to a bookmobile or some kind of mobile library. Libraries that haven't had them in decades are going back to them because they find a use for that. But even, this one on the bicycle, it opens up and they take it to parks and things like that. Some vans just have technology in them. That's all that they're used for. And there's a variety of different types of vehicles that people are using. I love these street ones that kind of open up and are an awful lot of fun. It's just this little mobile hotspot that goes everywhere. Customer convenience is something that we're looking at differently, and it's a little hard to tell what this is, but the one on the left, these are smart lockers. And the idea is that people can pick up their holds whenever it's convenient for them to pick them up. So if they work the night shift and they want to pick them up, at 3 in the morning or whatever time they get out, when they place their holds, they say, oh yeah, I want to pick them up in one of the lockers. They're given a code, and then they can go pick them up. Or Spokane has these little kiosks that they put out in the community in areas where they really don't have the demand for bricks and mortar yet, but they need to get materials out there, and people can get their holds out of this, and they can get other books as well and return things there. You have such a beautiful setting for your library. I don't know, I was taken by it the second I walked in that library. It is gorgeous. And we're seeing libraries that are really connecting the inside and outside, not just by having a porch or a patio or something like that. Sometimes it's just having, that line of sight to an outside space. Or sometimes they're actually using that outside space, and they have an amphitheater outside, or they have a children's garden. Sometimes an actual garden, where I've seen pizza gardens, where kids grow the ingredients to make a pizza, and then at the end of the season they actually make one. But when we think about it, a lot of people will say, if you ask them, where do you like to read? I really like to read outside. A lot of us like to read outside, and I'm seeing libraries incorporate some of that into their spaces and into their programming, not just their spaces. And finally, I'm really, and this is the best one, because I'm seeing libraries that are more community-driven than they have been before. It really wasn't that long ago that we would do planning, service planning, and never really talk to the public. Group of librarians sat in a room and they made up this plan, but they didn't actually go out and survey people and talk about, well, what do you want your library to be? And they do now, and I think that's a great turn of events for all communities, because not every community wants the same library. They all have their own flavor and want something a little bit different. And that's why we're doing the surveys and the focus groups and things like that. We get some information from the public by how they use the library. And the staff has helped me gather that kind of information, because that tells a story too. What do they check out? What don't they check out? And luckily, technology gives us a lot of that, and I have that information. But that in itself really only tells me a part of the information. Just like the surveys only tell me, one piece of it, and then the focus groups will tell me something about it. So once we put all that together, it starts giving us a clearer picture of where the community would like to see this library go. So I have, just like I will the other focus groups, I have some questions for you. And I'm not very tall. If you could, give me a high sign when I'm using too much time or whatever, I want to be cognizant of your time. All planning, whether we're planning for services or a building, I do a lot of different kinds of planning. It all starts with really questions about the community, because it's the community's library, and there are community issues that the library is trying to help resolve. So that's where I start. And since I'm certainly not the expert in the room about Apache Junction, I can talk to you all day about Phoenix, but not about Apache Junction. So I'm just interested in, how would you describe the Apache Junction community? I've looked at the numbers. I kind of know who lives here, what the demographics tell me, how old they are and things like that, how well educated they are. But how would you describe the Apache Junction community? And our members who are on the phone, please feel free to speak up anytime.
I find it a very giving and supportive community. And I've enjoyed living here since 2005, about 2005.
Okay.
And so, and always something going on. There's activities for just about everything, anything you want to do. And especially in the wintertime, it gets really, really kind of hectic.
Because you have that population change.
Yes,
in the
shift
wintertime.
in population, yeah.
What else?
I think people really, really like being as close to the mountains as they are. I mean, the entire valley's surrounded by mountains, but they're really present here. I've lived in Mesa, before I lived here, I lived in Mesa for about 18 years, and I didn't think about the mountains that much, but I think about them every day here. And I think about being able to be outside. I think about being able to really feel like I live in the desert, and I live in the part of the desert that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the residents here really appreciate that.
There is a reason people move to a particular place. And, when you look at Apache Junction, you might not have the highest wages here, or the most opportunities in terms of, career advancement here, depending on what you do. But you have something you can't get other places, too. And for some people, that's really important. That's the driving factor. Okay. Who else?
So I'm gonna say, this is Yvonne, Cruiser, and I've lived in Apache Junction since 1989, and it was considered a bedroom community for many years for exactly what you just said. Is there's not a lot of jobs out here, so people have been driving into the valley for years, and I think some people have looked at it. They can come out here, live, and it's their escape from, quote unquote, the city, but they still have the convenience of living in a city, but feel like they're in a more rural, open setting.
Absolutely, and certainly as the roadways have developed, it's a lot easier to commute than it used to be.
I feel like
Oh,
we
yeah.
have two seasons here in Apache Junction. We have the winter visitor season, and we have the non-winter visitor season. Obviously, all statistics go up from November till April. And sometimes it's a little disappointing to those of us who are permanent residents that not as many opportunities are offered during the summer as they are during the winter season when there's increase in population.
I actually saw a comment similar to that, maybe it was you, on the public survey. On one of the public surveys, somebody mentioned that we're here in the summer too, and about adult programming. So that's interesting. Anything else that you'd say about your community if someone asked you to describe it? Okay. Every community has issues that it deals with. We certainly have our fair share in Phoenix. This is not certainly as diverse an area as Phoenix is, and while I find the diversity very enriching, it certainly placed challenges upon the library when I was there. And so that was one of the challenges that faced us. How do we, constantly accept and bring people into our community and help them succeed? How does that work? So, what are the major issues that are facing the people who live in Apache Junction? Is it education, or how much money they make, homelessness? What do you have to deal with?
Homelessness is absolutely something that is a concern. I've been participating in the Citizens Academy, and that's come up a number of times as an issue that the city is not set up very well to deal with. They try to get resources from lots of charities to kind of create a bundle of things that can be offered to help those who are homeless, but it's a constant concern throughout the community, and I know some people who are really against it. I've mentioned to Pam at least once or twice that I really respect the fact that the library is seen as a safe place for homeless as well as those people who are homed. So I really respect that attitude and that way of trying to address the issue by giving them a safe place to go.
Absolutely. What about other issues?
A lot of it, for being a parent, I have to leave early. I have to leave my kiddo by herself to go to work every day. It's just really a struggle. You always have to cheer, okay, what type of job, what type of pay am I willing to do, but what's going to get sacrificed in the meantime?
Okay.
Time with family, all that stuff you have to decide between, along with a good school to send your kid to.
Is it common for schools around here to have before school care and after school care, or not?
It is, but it's expensive.
Okay, I wondered about that. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So for young families, especially like yours, I can see where that can be a challenge. Anything else? Is there enough housing here for people who are looking for housing?
It's money-wise. I know people, I talk to them all the time, they have jobs, but they have to live out of their car because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
The prices are rising really fast.
Yeah.
Even out here, they're rising really fast.
I wondered about that, because I just went through this experience. One of my children bought her first place about a year ago, and I knew prices were rising, but I didn't really have the full impact of what it was like out there till I had, my kid going through this and dealing with big companies coming in and just making cash offers for places, and and she just kept getting shut down. Never mind the price tag.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if that was reaching out here as well.
In my neighborhood, I've seen at least 3 open door signs up in my neighborhood, and I paid $340 for my house, and now they're selling for $399 in the same exact neighborhood in less than a year. So
Okay.
it's going up really fast.
Is it a popular place, though, for people who maybe are working elsewhere in the county? Because your cost of living, your cost of housing certainly is still less than the areas around you.
That's why I bought out here. I mean, I love being this close to the mountains, but
Yeah.
my mom lives in Mesa, and I would have really liked to find someplace closer to her, but I could afford out here and do the things that I wanted to do with my money. I came from California, and so I had cash. I could pay for a house with cash, but given the different things that were going on in my personal situation, it was like, okay, I can spend this amount of money. Where can I find a house for that kind of money? And this is where I could find that house.
Okay. Anything else? Any other major issues that are facing this community? It sounds like the same issues that are facing a lot of communities.
I think we're all really concerned about how growth is going to affect the infrastructure in the community. With 11,000 homes being added to all the infrastructure that we depend upon,
Right.
especially transportation, but water is also something that's constant consideration. And that's another thing that we've been talking about in the Citizens Academy is what are going to be the impacts to city infrastructure? What are they going to have to do for transportation? How are they going to deal with the school system? And when they're under population in the current public schools that we have, all of those will require people to be bussed in, which means there will be more buses, which means they'll need more bus drivers, and they're having a hard time getting bus drivers. So it's like, it's
Right.
a bunch of dominoes that are impacted by that growth that's going to happen in the next 5 years.
Yes, I've been, I've talked a little bit with the staff about the growth that's coming and read some about it as well. And you're right, especially for a place that's growing fast, that infrastructure is really critical. And it seems to, but you don't have the tax base yet to build it because those people aren't here yet. So you're having to put out that money first before they actually get here. I think there's a lot of areas certainly in the valley, I've seen it, that are Buckeye, dealing with that. So that's definitely a challenge.
I think transportation is a real major issue, for whether it's seniors or kids trying to get to the library. If they're home, if they're dropped off at home, there's no way for them to get to the library, or there needs to be some sort of, bus service, or, even if it's just, up and down the main streets. But I think transportation has been a really tough one. Also, I would think technical training, whether it's, I say technical, but it could be plumbers, electricians, the trades, to, a trade school would be wonderful to have here.
Absolutely.
Along those lines, though, a lot of the schools will have it that they do offer to drop the kids right after school straight to the library. So that's always a beneficial. But then along those lines also, we're known as the ranching, the night skies, all that stuff. We don't have a lot of big businesses here to support families. You have to go somewhere else to get that. And that's another thing that we lack. Because I think, 60% of our committee or our city is retirees, so they don't want to come here. We need to get the people first before we can get the jobs, which, you kind of need the one for the other one.
Right,
And
right.
you need the housing to put the
Yep,
people
so-
in.
That seems to be the big one in a lot of places right now, the housing for people to come.
Housing.
I'd like to shift and talk about the library now. What do you use the library for? Why do you go there?
Everything.
I think for the size of our town, we have one of the most wonderful libraries around. I've lived in bigger towns, I've lived all over, and I love the fact that our library satisfies just about all of my needs. And I am very proud of both our recreation department and our library department here in this town. One of the biggest problems I see is lack of communication. We lost our town newspaper, and it's very hard to get out the word
Right.
of what every department offers to the citizens of Apache Junction. And that's a problem we really need to address.
Okay.
We have so many opportunities here, but unless you know about it, you can't take advantage of it.
Exactly. So it sounds like you do go to the library for some of those events then.
Oh, you bet.
What else do you use the library for? I'm assuming maybe you check out books or you download some reading materials. Anything else?
Technical training on computers. I've done, quite a few classes, and it helps keep me, current, shall we say current, or try to keep current. And also, the friends of the library, I love, cruising in those stacks of books in there, and that's a lot of fun. And looking at also the new books coming out, what's on the list to read. And so it's just a wealth of information here, and you can just about find anything you're looking for.
In between Hoopla and the county library and our public library, you can get anything from anywhere. Even though we're not a huge town, I have never asked for anything that I couldn't receive.
It's pretty amazing when you think, really not all that long ago, that, in the scheme of things, that libraries really were what was in their four walls. So they could borrow things for you sometimes, but it took forever to get something from someplace else.
Right.
And now it's just, there it
Touch of
is.
your fingertips.
You talked about how great the library is, and I agree with you, and certainly the public agrees with you based on what I saw in the surveys that we asked about. Tell me, what do you especially like about the library? I mean, I'll tell you that one of the things I especially like when I go there is, aside from the collection or any of those things, because I'm not a resident, I haven't checked any of those out. I love the setting of it. I love sitting by those windows and that beautiful area that it's located in. It's just something that you can't always get. And they chose well to choose a location like that for the library. So that's something I really love about it. What do you particularly like about the library?
I like all the free programming. I mean, you look at the stats, and you look at all those programs, and it covers children, teens, adults, and there's something for every age group. And if you don't use it, shame on you, because it's there. It's all available.
If you know about it.
If you know about it, yeah. So you have to pick up a calendar at the beginning of the month and read that calendar.
I use it and think about it as a third place. It is quiet, it's more open. If I get tired of sitting at my house on the days when I work from home, it's like, okay, I can go over to the library and just sit there for a while, pop open my laptop and do some work. It's not ever going to get really loud, but it's never going to be as loud as the office. It's not going to be as isolating as my house. And it just feels more open because it's, there's so much open, the ceilings are high and the walls are far away, and it just feels freeing.
Right. Yeah, the library has definitely become the office for quite a few people. Anything else that you especially like about the library?
I like the family interaction. Because I do D&D, even though it's for the kids, but my kid will do it sometimes. She doesn't want to, she goes plays with the kids. I mean, it's a win-win. And the other kids, some of them don't have that family support, and they just want to spend time with people. And it's nice to kind of get to know the kids.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything, and I'll tell you right now, it's okay to say this, Pam's not going to be offended by this. Is there anything that frustrates you when you use the library? And I will tell you, when I was with Phoenix, we built I don't know, 12 libraries in the years I was there. It was when the population was booming. And there's probably not a one that I don't walk in now and think, what was I thinking? Wonder why we decided to do a certain thing. So is there anything that frustrates you when you use the library?
More seating, more areas to do events or things that.
Okay, so there's
you
not
get
enough
juggled
space?
around. Yeah, there's a lack of space.
Okay.
There's a lot of the shelves are now kind of half empty, and it makes you think, well, couldn't we use that space for something else?
We were talking about that today, and I said, couldn't you lower these? Imagine you could see all the way across if you could lower
Make it
these.
feel even freer, and I think it would make it feel bigger. It would make it feel more welcoming. I think it's more welcoming when it's open.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else? I mean, I can give you my list. Nothing else? You're good folks. What do you think is, as the library board, what do you think the major challenges are facing the library, today and looking forward? You've talked about growth. That's always a challenge because you're serving more people with probably not a lot more money, if any. Anything else? Any other challenges that you see as board members that are facing the library?
You better say it, 'cause I will.
Communication.
I was just going to say the same thing. She had mentioned it earlier, and with no print and it's all social media, it becomes difficult.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
What Vera was saying, with no print, it's more difficult for people to find out what's happening, or how do we communicate to the community what's going on?
Right.
How to reach out to them besides social media, because it seems like more people are dropping social media also. So that's going to affect how we go forward with things.
Well, I can tell you in the public survey, social media was third or fourth in the way that people, when we asked people how they find out what's going in the library. The library website was first, and flyers and posters and things in the library was second. Word of mouth may have been third. Social media tends to be a particular demographic. And if you, we can look, I haven't parsed it out that way yet to look and divide people by age and then look at the answer to that question. But, usually if you look at teens, people think about social media, but most teens will tell you word of mouth. That's how they hear about something going on. So it's really an interesting question. You actually had a couple very good suggestions from the public about how to tell people about events going on. So we'll have to talk about those.
What about
other challenges?
The prevalence of digital versus physical content, and whether that incentivizes people to continue to come to the library, or does the library need to reinvent itself as not necessarily a place where you pick up materials, but where you come to interact with other people around the materials, or something of that nature that's basically reconceiving what the library really does.
Yeah. What about, in some places I've seen it's political will. You seem to have a very supportive city. City government that's very supportive of the library. That's not true everywhere, and that's not something money changes necessarily. It's not that they think poorly of the library, they just don't think of it. But I'm not seeing that here. It seems like that, you have elected officials who are very invested in the library. Anything else that you see as a challenge to the library?
Money, of course, and budgets. That probably Pam and Santi have to go through trying to figure it out. And, where to put the money, whether it goes into programming or whether it goes into, other replacement of materials or buying of new materials. It's got to be a tough.
how do you think, or what could the library do to better serve you? If they could somehow better meet your needs, how might they be doing that? For you or your family, your community, what could they be, what could they possibly be doing that would be valuable to you?
Do we have any sense of the Hispanic population in Apache Junction and whether we have, because I've been down the aisle with the Spanish language texts, and I'm wondering if that is something that's a draw or whether it's not enough to be a draw, because we might not have enough variety of
Yeah.
Spanish language materials.
I don't know, you're talking about what, 3% of your community maybe is of Hispanic origin? I think when I looked at the demographics, it was about 3%.
Is there any way for you to tell whether they're visiting the library, the 3% we do have? I don't know if you can even, could you tell that? Because you don't ask that kind of question when you
No.
get cards.
No,
Okay.
not really, that I'm aware of, unless Tony has insight on that.
What about cultural activities, that would bring people in? If you did a cultural, there's Hispanic Month, there's, African American, there's, gosh, I'm trying to think what else.
Well, there's Pride in June, there's the Hispanic Latinx is in from September 15th to October 15th. I do DE&I stuff at work, so
There's
there's
Dia
Women's
de los
History
Muertos
in
in
March, and
October.
yeah, Dia de los Muertos.
Women's
Then there's,
suffrage and,
yeah, Black History in February. There's MLK Day where it's a day of service, so there's lots of potential opportunities
Right,
to
right.
broaden the reach and be seen as representing and trying to connect.
Okay.
But I think some of that has been in effect. For example, the November 2nd, Dia de los Muertos lecture was the finest I have ever seen. And it was so poorly attended. And I really believe it's because people didn't know about it. I thought Mr. Guerrero did an exceptional job. And that was reaching out.
So something that I can tell you for sure keeps me from being able to come is I work during the day, and a lot of, and there is quite a bit of adult programming during the day as opposed to in the afternoon, late afternoon or early evening. And I know, Pam, you mentioned yesterday that you're open until 8, but there's not really often events that late at night, which would potentially draw in an adult population, and they could, they could have their kids in the kids area, and they could be in a talk or doing a class or something like that. And we're not necessarily thinking, how can we get in the working adults? There's plenty of programming for those who are not working or who have more flexibility in their schedules, but for those who have less flexibility, it's not as easy to participate. I end up doing stuff on the weekends if I'm going to come in, because that's when I have time.
or a singles type of group too, you could, maybe a Wednesday a singles night here at the library or something, and, whether it's discussion, it's discussion group or something to bring them in.
I wonder if those, I know some of the programs are virtual, and can they be recorded and available to people at different times? I know I attend a lot of webinars from the Tucson Audubon Society, but after I attend the webinar, I also get a notification that it has been recorded and I can watch it again, or if I am not able to attend, I can watch it later. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, we've done that with some of the virtual offerings, and we have a YouTube station, so
Yeah.
there is content on there that can be watched at a later
So
time.
people can attend those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, we
at
don't do
their
it for
own-
everything, but we have done it for a lot, especially, during the peak of the pandemic.
Right.
So if we were to do something like that, because that's a really good idea, the thing that keeps it from actually driving more interaction is that you're just watching it. It's just like watching television. It's not the give and take that you have in the actual session.
Right.
But Megan could be a way to do this, because Megan could help to facilitate additional responding to people who watch and then have a question, and maybe forward that back to the speaker, or be able to answer it herself if she knows.
Well, and
But
that
as a
does
way of doing
happen.
that.
Yes,
That
because
really
on the writer in residence, when he gives a lecture, which is virtual because he doesn't want to come in, we have the opportunity to go back and forth to him.
So thinking about, if you record, that's static, but if you have an ability for them to then ask questions as a follow-up, and this could be, a month following the
Right.
event of potential, so it's not inconsiderable an amount of time that it requires. So you probably would want to be choosy as to what you choose, but like the speaker series, I would have loved to have come, but I couldn't come. It's because it was like 2 in the afternoon or something.
So it's like a
that.
discussion after the discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. That's a really interesting idea.
Or the ones that go to the lecture, if you taped it, then you could run it in the evening and have another group come in and watch it,
That
in
is
the
another way you can
evening.
do it, and that could be like, with just
More
what you said, with
social.
the singles kind of thing, that makes it social again, yes, you can do that.
So you're actually repeating it, but you're not taking up
That
that
speaker's time.
speaker and asking them to do it a second time. Exactly. I just have one more question for you. If I came back and met with you a year or so from now, what would you like to say that the library's doing differently? What change would you like to see?
Pre-pandemic numbers?
What else? What would you like to see that's changed?
Better communication, I guess, a newspaper, hopefully another newspaper in town that could be whether it's weekly or, but we need that print copy out there. There's just no way to advertise it. I mean, as hard as we try with the social media, it's just the word's still not getting out there.
Right.
I totally agree with that, totally.
That would be a big one. That would be a big change, wouldn't it? If you could
Yes.
find some way, a new way
Mm-hmm.
to communicate what's happening in the library. Anything else? Okay. Well, if there's anything in particular you want to make sure we keep in mind as we go through this process, anything you think of after we all leave tonight, please feel free to share that with Pam or get my contact information. You can share it with me. I don't want you to go home and say, oh, I wish I'd said that, and then think you don't have another opportunity to. Of course you do. Just let us know, because we'd like that input. And then I'll be seeing the library board when we're done with this process, and we have some goals to show you, some service goals, and some ideas about how we're going to get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, discussing and possible vote to change meeting time for future library board meetings.
Yes, we wanted to give an opportunity for the board members to think about when we're currently having our board meetings. And I know several of you have had life changes, and it's possible that this might not be the best time to meet. And I know in past years, it's been a discussion of 6:30 is in our bylaws as the time when we're going to meet, but it's can be flexible. We just wanted to know if you wanted to discuss and possibly vote if you were looking for a change in terms of meeting time for our future meetings.
I'm okay with how it is.
It works for me right now. I have to drive in on Thursdays, I have to drive in from Phoenix, so that gives me time to get to my house, get my dog out so that, she can take care of her business and then get over here. So if it were any earlier than 6, it would be really difficult for me to do it.
Okay,
I'm happy with it the way it is.
Yeah, so am I.
okay.
Vivian, Yvonne, any input?
I'm fine with the time. I was just wondering if somebody had mentioned something to you about it not working, is why you brought it up, or just?
No, not at all. Actually, it came up kind of haphazardly, looking through some old board meeting notes from previous years. It was just something that I saw, and, I knew Cheryl had gotten a new job, and I know, Pam, you get off work, earlier, like 3 hours earlier than, that's when I usually see you at the library. So I didn't know if there was another time. I hate to keep people out later than I have to, so if there was a time that was earlier, that would have worked for everybody, but if it works the way it is, it's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm at work anyway. So just wanted to put that out there to make life easiest for everybody, and it sounds like that 6:30 is a good time.
And the day is good, the second Thursday. Yeah.
Okay, well, great, thank you.
Do we need to do a roll call for that, or we're good?
No, since we're not making a change, there's no vote, so.
I was gonna say. Okay. Setting of date and time in June for special board meeting to discuss and approve the 2021 and 2022 Library Board of Trustees Annual Report.
Yes, so the annual report is right around the corner. I can't believe it's been another year. And we will be needing to discuss a date and time in the latter part of June to hold that special meeting. Our regular June meeting will still be in effect, but we need to have that special meeting solely to discuss and hopefully approve the Library Board of Trustees annual report for 21-22. So I wanted to get your thoughts on dates for that, and of course, we probably should have brought a calendar.
Does that need to be done before June 9th or after? Does it matter?
We prefer to have it as late in June as possible so that we can get as much data into the report, because the way it works, it takes time for Sancy and I to get all the statistics together and aggregate everything, and then the sooner we cut off the statistics in June, that means they have to carry, the later statistics will have to carry over into the new budget, into the new fiscal year. So we always try to do it after the midpoint at least of June, not January. So let me see, June, excuse me. Why am I saying January?
So June
The last
30th.
day of June is on a Thursday.
So why don't we do it that day?
Okay, so June 30th is the last day of June, and it's on a Thursday.
Mhm.
And then before that would be the 23rd. Our regular meeting is on June 9th.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
And Sancy, what's the date that we have to have it to council for their approval by the first
Monday in July.
Monday in July? Is that going to give us enough time to
That
get it to them?
Independence Day, are they going to be, because the first Monday is the 4th of July.
Yeah, if we could do, probably that, lost my calendar. If we could do maybe the 23rd,
23rd?
probably be that's the happy medium, I would think,
Mhm.
the 23rd of June.
Okay, because the 30th it's cutting it kind of close.
Well, I mean, we could do the 30th, but
Okay, so there's options, probably, but I know, you might have vacations planned and whatnot, so we're looking at 23rd and 30th would be the latest Thursdays in June, so I'll let you guys discuss.
I'm down for the 23rd. That way they give plenty of time for council.
Yeah, that's fine with me, too.
Mhm.
It works for me.
Vivian, Yvonne, does that one work for you also?
Absolutely.
Can I call in for that one as well? My grandfather's health has taken a turn, so once school gets out, I'm going to be in Texas for the majority of June.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Then yeah, I mean, since I keep phoning in, I can really do anything.
Okay, well, so we decided the 23rd of June at 6:30 will be the next date. Do I get a motion for that?
I move that we select the 23rd of June for the Board of Trustees annual report.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call, please.
Judy Bory,
Yes.
Cheryl Hall,
Yes.
Pam Kraus,
Yes.
Yvonne Cruiser,
Yes.
Vivian Reisky,
Yes.
Vera Walters,
Yes.
Lori Wine is absent, and the motion passes.
Thank you. Request for future agenda items.
As you can guess, I would like to suggest that we revisit the communication to the public, advertising, whatever you want to call it, at the next meeting. I've had some ideas, and I think we should further this so that we can come up with some plans.
I have that written down, thank you.
Vivian, Yvonne, do you have anything?
Mm.
I'll take that as a no. Okay, we're going to adjourn at.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, sorry. Okay, looks like we're going to adjourn at 7:35.
Okay, thank you, ladies on the phone. You can go ahead and hang.